Quarth for Game Boy. A game I never realized existed as a local release until a timely trip to the flea market where I spotted this game on sale. The only version of Quarth that I knew of, or at least the only one that I've played, was the Famicom release, which tends to be a common find in those 110-in-1 multi-cart things, and I always thought we never got that game here, but it turns out we did get that game here because here's Quarth on Game Boy, published by Konami through their Ultra Game subsidiary that was created solely to circumvent Nintendo policies regarding game releases. You learn something new every day. Now for those who have never played Quarth, the concept is fairly straightforward for the most part. You control a little ship, or a little pod carried by little angels, or this flying cigar thing, or any of the 6 playable things that just blow my mind. And you have these block-shaped things above, and your main goal is to shoot your blocks at these other block things so that they form 4-sided squares or rectangles and disappear from view. Naturally, you want to clear all these shapes because if any of them cross this dotted line in the bottom, your ship deflates and the game ends. There are no lives, no continues, you're just dead. So there's a bit more urgency here than in the Famicom version, which gave you multiple lives to play with, but otherwise the core gameplay remains more or less the same as that version. For those who have played Quarth on Famicom, you'll find this Game Boy iteration feels a bit more refined, for lack of a better word. Much like the home version, you could choose your starting round, and you also have a selection of 6 ships, which do little else other than give you different music and slightly different looking blocks. But you also have 3 skill levels to choose from, with 2 more hidden away and enabled by clearing the initial batch. Each level has 9 rounds that, unlike the Famicom version, are mapped out with fixed layouts much like a proper level would be. So you can play around several times and it'll always be the same layout of blocks and stuff like that, making it easier to memorize and prepare for future playthroughs. For those craving a more randomized playing experience, similar but not quite the same as what you'd get on the Famicom or the MSX or the arcade or whatever, there's Random, which also serves as the game's endless mode. There's also Game Link support for 2-player games, and if you could find a copy of a game for a friend and a Game Link, that should be plenty fun. Much like the Famicom version, there are temporary power-ups that will give you a bit of help, such as speedier shots, screen clearing bonuses, pausing of the automatic scrolling, and even a mysterious power-up that provides random effects that will either be beneficial or detrimental to your progress. Acquiring power-ups works differently here than the other version, and to be honest, I like the way they're implemented here better. If you clear a shape comprising a sizable number of blocks, you'll earn a pickup. The more blocks cleared in one shot, the more valuable the prize. It doesn't have to be a combo or anything of the sort, though it wouldn't be a bad idea and it would certainly help. Just the number of blocks that's taken into account to determine the power-up you get. These power-ups are then stored into your inventory box on the right side of the screen, and at any point you need a crutch, you press down to select the desired item, and you press B to activate it. This is actually pretty smart. Rather than providing you with some random power-up at random times, you could collect these items yourself through the proper conditions and use them at times where they might seem necessary or even helpful. You could only store one of each at a time, but a good player will be able to create instances where they can use and obtain more at regular intervals. It gives you a bit more control over your fortunes, as it were. Quarth on Game Boy is a much more refined iteration of the game that I played on the NES multi-cart thing. The core gameplay mechanics combining the scrolling shooter aspect with puzzle elements still works really well and makes for a fun and interesting experience, so long as you're willing to accept the bizarre yet surprisingly functional amalgamation. But the additional tweaks and changes to the system arguably make this the ideal version of the game to be played. Though to be fair, Quarth in any form is plenty fun if you could get behind the concept of a hybrid shooter scrolling puzzle thing, which isn't always an easy sell. But regardless, gameplay is nice and solid, as are the controls, which function adequately here. I'll admit there was an adjustment to be made when jumping from the Famicom version to this here Game Boy version, because the former had very simple controls where both buttons shoot, while this portable version has slightly more functions, so every once in a while, I'll press the wrong button and activate a power-up, which I really had no intention of doing so, when all I really wanted to do was shoot a block at a certain area. But once you get past that transitional period, controls works very well, feels natural, and quite responsive, which is nice for a shooter thing. Quarth is a fairly simplistic looking game. Simple looking menu, simple looking play field, simple layout. You get the idea, right? There's a lot of little details here that are pretty neat, such as the changing of the layout depending on which ship you pick. Only 2, but still it's a nice little alteration, a nice bit, nice detail, I guess. The ships themselves look pretty detailed and animate fairly simplistically, but it's more than enough to get the point across. Not much else I gotta say about the graphics in this regard. It's a plain but otherwise clean looking game, and that's more than adequate in this case. As expected from a Konami title, Quarth has exceptional sound quality, slightly more musical bits than the Famicom version, which is nice. The music that plays in the background depends on the type of ship you selected, which isn't much, it's either one song or the other, but it's still a nice detail, and what you have in terms of background tunes are well composed and good tunes in general. Some decent yet average sound effects around the package. Like I said, good sound quality, or exceptional, or something, whatever. It sounds good, that's all you need to know. Overall, Quarth on Game Boy is a fun little hybrid shooter puzzle thing that takes the unique gameplay styles of its arcade, Famicom, MSX predecessors, or whatever, and tweaks it slightly to make it even better. Now, if you've never played those versions, what you're getting with Quarth is just a neat idea that combines two genres that really shouldn't have anything to do with each other, yet the combination works and makes for a really fun time. On more local fronts, this is probably the easier version to get, whether it be the actual Game Boy cartridge, which isn't that expensive, or you could get it through the 3DS Virtual Console. Either way, Quarth is just great stuff and just fun. And I like fun. So, yeah. Fun.